All right, guys, welcome to class. This is innovation in EH&S. Compliance inspection. It's a little loud out there. Let me close that door. Oh, thank you very much. Welcome to class, everyone. Not really. I just presented, so I'm looking at my presenting juices flowing already. Happy to, I'm Robert Hargrave with Bayer. We're a stack testing company. This guy's a super scientist. Well, he's his quick bio. His name's David Owen. He's a president and principal senior scientist at Environmental 360. He's an environmental consultant with more than 20 years, probably older than most of you. 20 years of environmental consulting experience with industrial and commercial clients. Mr. Owen specializes in industrial air and automated compliance and inspection programs. His primary responsibilities at Environmental 360 are team member support, project oversight on compliance projects, and corporate administrative oversight. He's married to Stacy. They have 3 children, it says here, sorry. Peyton, Andy, and Hayes, and a pointing lab named Hatch. I introduce Mr. David Owen. Thank you, Robert.
So, anybody wants to know what Hatch looks like? This was president. That's Hatch with aviator goggles. My kids built for Halloween.
Never see like peppers.
Nope. Hatch likes sleeping in front of the fire. So, to get started with, let me tell you a little bit about our company, what we do, and how we get into automating environmental compliance programs. Environmental 360, like a lot of other consultants here, we do leak detection inspections. We do environmental health and safety consulting. So we do write compliance plans, and then we often facilitate our clients by performing the compliance inspections for them. So we've got a team of inspectors out there. They're doing SBCC inspections. They're doing stormwater. They're doing LDAR. We've got a SIMS group that does SIMS work. And we started the company in 2010, and most of our inspections were paper because it was easy to manage, and I'll get into that in a minute. And then we said, okay, let's go find something to automate this a little bit, make it a little more streamlined. We had clients that were handing us these applications to use that were turning our inspections instead of an 8-hour inspection to a 16-hour inspection. They're paying us by the hour, right? So it's costing them money. Either we're going to do it or somebody's going to give us something that doesn't work really well. So I want to back up a little bit. I want to take you back to 1999. Prince was singing about it. We were partying like it was 1999 because it was 1999. And the first company I worked for was working on automating LDAR compliance inspections. So we had this nice handheld device here. I mean, the buttons weren't even on the screen. You had to push the buttons. Then we had this RFID reader here. Then we got these tags here, and inside this tag, there's a little RFID tag in there, radio frequency identification. It was going to take the place of barcodes because barcodes, you know, we'll talk about it later, they covered up a product and they get removed. So these tags were going to take the place of that. You can see all that dust on here. It still works. Great idea, 1999. Except for the evil one. Back before we had USB, CUSB, all these nice connections that stay in place. Before we had Bluetooth, we had serial pin connections. Not only did we have serial pin connections, we had these monitors that you had to have adapters for. So 25 pins and 9-pin connection. And that SOB, every time it came undone, the application crashed or something like that. It made you want to throw this little off the catwalk you were on. So in 1999, it was a great idea. But the technology wasn't quite there for an industrial setting. I mean, this is hot, nasty industrial work. You got to have devices that work well. So in Environmental 360, almost 20 years later, probably 6 years ago, we started thinking about, okay, we want to automate these programs. What do we need to do to develop this? How's it going to make it work well? And there was already other systems out there that were database managers. You know, everybody's storing their information in the cloud, but what did we need to create to make it a good product? And there's a lot of stakeholders in this process, right? you got your compliance inspectors out there. You got your compliance managers. And you get your auditors or your corporate environmental team or whatever you want to call it. And as a former compliance inspector, LDAR technician, SBCC inspector, sometimes these stakeholders don't really consider these people. They just like, I just want it done, right? But finding a good way of performing those inspections will end up saving you money. So it's important that we think about all the stakeholders in order to come up with a good solution. So number one, we wanted tools for these compliance inspectors that would make the inspections efficient and accurate. You needed a good list of inspection points. And you needed quality guidance for those inspectors out there, okay? Don't just throw them out there without them understanding what they need to do. Compliance managers, all they really care about is having quality data and good reports. They want their data organized and accessible to them. And they want their inspections completed on time and in compliance with the regulation. And then the corrective action part of it, if they find problems, they want it fixed timely. Some regulations say you got to have it fixed, LDAR, 5 days, 15 days, right? SBCC is a little more broad, but they want timely corrective actions. And the compliance auditors, they want to know that it was done correctly. I mean, Robert's whole presentation was talking about, you know, bad data and reports. If you don't have all the data points, the regulators are going to start asking questions. The quality assurance is key. Organized data and reports. You know, when you're paying a third-party auditor to come in and audit your system, if it's not, if the data is not there and it's sufficient for them to review, then it's going to cost you money in the long term. Last bullet point, a little low here, is easy access to the data. And those are kind of professional bullet points, but here's what they're really saying. Compliance inspectors and paper inspections, this is a lot of paper. Like I'm out here and I'm like, Brandon works with me. He's seen me try to go through a list of sheets of papers. I'm terrible at being organized, and 20 inspection sheets and I in a hot, nasty environment don't go well. Number two, can I get the latest version of the inspection form? You pull it out, and you get it halfway through the inspection, and you realize that the guy from Team you realize that you don't have the right forms. You know, you're missing 2 or 3 components. They're not up to date. And then, last of all, and this is the biggest hurdle, like LDAR, you may have 10,000 components out there. How's someone supposed to know where all those components are? Maybe the person who's been there 20 years, been doing those inspections, knows where it's at. But think about this pandemic, how often that you have someone filling in for someone. When you lose that, when you depend on that institutional knowledge to know where all those inspection points are, you're setting yourself up for failure. Compliance managers, I wonder if that dude actually walked out of there to that inspection point and inspected that inspection point. We've done audits before where we were out, helping a site set up or revise their LDAR program. And the person that always does the inspections is showing us around. And like, yeah, I think there's some up there on that top of that tank up there, but I don't climb ladders. We're like, well, yeah, those haven't been looked at in a while, have they? The compliance manager is wondering, where's that dang report? We're getting close to the end of the quarter. I don't have all my reports. Where are they at? And folks, today's the deadline. Where's my inspection report? The timely reporting is important to that compliance manager. Organized reporting is important to that compliance manager. We had one site that we were at recently. They had to do monthly OVA inspections, and they were compiling reports from 16 different people every month that encompassed their system. How do you even manage that all those inspection points were completed and pulling all those in and putting them all together and compiling them? And that's just 1 month. They got to do 12 months of that. So an organized way of compiling all that data is important to the compliance manager. And the compliance auditors, the auditors coming in and they're looking at all these reports and they're saying there's no way that they looked at all these inspection points this quickly. If they got 10,000 and completed them in 4 hours, or we're still waiting for, you're sitting there in the audit, and I've been here before, and it's like, okay, we've got every month except for September and March. Where's those reports? And people were trying to dig them up, and They may have half of it. Compliance auditors want to know where those reports. And then from a time saving standpoint, we've got compliance auditors that have to go to the site just to review reports that are in a filing cabinet. Why wouldn't we give them access to those remotely? We've got cloud servers, we've got the web, you know, why pay for those travel expenses when the bulk of that audit work can be done remotely? So that's what we really, you know, the EH&S team really think. So our progression in Environmental 360 was, like I said, start with the clipboard. That's where we started. There's some places we still use a clipboard. Some places where you're doing an SPCC inspection for 3 tanks, you know, that's all you really need, you know. Maybe it's a quarterly inspection. There's no reason to spend money on automating that system. We went from the clipboard to incorporating like Microsoft Teams and Microsoft SharePoint, where we could communicate through Teams. It's a really good way of tracking corrective actions, as a way to get a bunch of people involved to say, you know, these are the corrective actions that needed to be completed, and they could collaborate and help out. And then we moved to building our applications for SPCC and LDAR inspections called EH&S tracks. So when we're talking about inspection efficiency, one of the things we really wanted to increase the efficiency on is just moving away from spreadsheets. And spreadsheets are, you know, we're a decent way to manage all these inspection points, but again, you got to keep these inspection spreadsheets up to date. Anytime you make a change, then you've got to make sure those spreadsheets get up to date, updated, and then distributed to all the stakeholders within the process. Here's one of the old SPCC sheets, and you'll see the top row are all inspection points. And then we've got all the applicable SPCC questions here. What happens is you eventually get to the point where on the 200th container, the person's going along and they're going, okay, yes, 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 not applicable, yes, yes. So when they get to a container that doesn't have secondary containment, they may write yes instead of not applicable, because it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, their brain's shot, and they put it in the wrong column. Maybe they just, you know, meant to write it here and wrote it here. We've seen multiple audit findings where then the auditor's like, ah, got you, right here. Tank doesn't have secondary containment. You said it was okay. So where we wanted to get to was, so the not applicable, the yes and the no were always a problem for us. Then we started using some just simply database software applications. And those were better because you were able to automate your edits to your inspection sheets. You were able to you know, somewhat customize the types of questions you have for your inspection points. And it was all stored, you know, outside of pen and paper. So if you dropped if your dog ate your report, that wasn't going to happen because it was all stored electronically. And then finding the components is always a problem. So one of our next steps was to take our SPCC program, for instance, and overlay the inspection points on an aerial map. That helps some to help you figure out where these inspection points were for kind of a smaller facility. When you get into a refinery, paper mill, large sites, and if you're directionally challenged like I am, looking at that aerial photo and trying to figure out where you are amongst all of that large equipment may not work as well. But that was an improvement, and that may be where your slide needs to go if it's a small site like this. And finally, what we landed on with the EH&S tracks is a real-time inspector to inspection point mapping. So just like you pull out your phone if you're trying to find Starbucks here in Austin, and you kind of walk down the street and you're following your dot. Here's our dot here. And all of our inspection points are just drops with longitude and latitude. So the inspector in real time sees themselves walking up to the inspection point, and they know that they're at the inspection point when they get there. We use color coding so that you can tell what inspection points have been completed and what hadn't been completed. So if I were to start an inspection, take lunch, all my inspection points I started are green. Next person on the shift comes in and picks up my inspection. They can now see that all these red inspection points have yet to be inspected. They can join that inspection, on that inspection. So now we know where these inspection points are. We can go to the site, sight unseen, fill in for somebody, simply follow on we're a little person and know we're standing at the right spot. Or we'll at least think we're at the right spot. The other thing we wanted to do was incorporate photos. A lot of our clients want to like photo books of their inspection points. And those are like time consuming to build. Go out there and take pictures of everything. And really it's time consuming to set it up with a tablet. But once you have it in place, not only does the inspector have that they're following to that inspection point, now they have photos that will again confirm they're at the right spot. So I've got visual confirmation with the map. I've got a photo of my inspection point. I know I'm standing at the right spot, and I know that I'm looking at the right spot. SPCC, when you're looking at big components like tanks, things like that, that's really helpful. But when you get into LDAR, where you're looking at small pressure transmitters or flanges, things like that, a photo is going to help a whole lot so that you know that this number of inspection point is what you're actually looking at. So photos, in addition to the aerial mapping, really enhanced our program and made our inspectors confident that they were actually filling out the form for the correct inspection point. The other thing we want to do with our inspection sheets is we want to eliminate the non-applicable. So we wanted our inspectors to only see questions that were applicable to that inspection point. So when we go out for an SPCC inspection and we say, okay, this tank, it has overfill protection. Yes. It's got secondary containment. Yes. Does it have a level indicator? No. Okay. We set it up that way. And then the next time that inspector goes out there, they're not going to get a question about level indicator. Okay. There's not going to be that opportunity to write something down that's not true. They're only going to see the questions that are applicable to that inspection point. And we thought that was really going to help them from an audit standpoint of, only seeing what's applicable. Furthermore, from a training standpoint, that just lowers the training threshold that you have, because you don't have to worry about someone not understanding as much about what they have to expect. Questions are right there if it's set up properly. Questions so far? So attempt to enhance quality and access to data. So this is an old logbook that one of our clients was using for their inspections, and all their inspections were written down in this logbook. Really, that was back in the old days. Then we got into our database managers, like we were talking about, where you can actually see a date and a timestamp. So that at least tells you that they're spending approximately the right amount of time at each inspection point. So this shows you when they started, where they were at each inspection point. Helps you manage your data better. You can sort your data. Talked about barcodes a little bit ago. Barcode systems are great for ensuring that that inspector actually went through that inspection point. They'll have to scan that barcode. Problem is, if it's not there, it's not helpful. Or you spend a lot of time trying to work with barcodes that look like this out in the field and you can't scan, and that becomes a problem. But with GPS data, your latitude and longitude never change, or you can edit it, but you're not having to scan anything. With our GPSs, if we get to the point we're not within a prescribed distance of that inspection point, it's going to give our inspector a warning that they're not in the right location on that inspection. So, number one, from an efficiency standpoint, it removes one step that you have to perform. You don't have to scan a barcode. Just walk up there, click on the inspection point, and if you're not within the prescribed distance, it's going to tell you you're too far from that inspection point. Now, mapping on your phone, mapping on these tablets works two ways. It works off cellular triangulation. So if there's cell towers triangulated, that's how it's showing where you're located in this building right now. Or it works off GPS signal satellite. So There are some circumstances where in the basement of a plant, your GPS signal is not going to be very strong, if you have any at all. Even your cellular triangulation may be off a little bit. I was checking the mapping here inside this building, and it's spot on from a mapping standpoint. But other places that may, you may be out in the middle of nowhere, your cellular signal may not be as good. But we have the ability to extend that distance. So based on what area it is, we can say that that inspection distance needs to be 25 feet. We can make it 100 feet. But at least you know that that person's not sitting in their office filling out the form. Even if they do have a bad reception, they can override this, or in other circumstances where you might have a safety hazard or something like that, and you have to stand back to perform the inspection, the user can override that and list while they're performing it outside of the prescribed distance. So, as a form of quality control, we know our inspectors are walking up to the inspection point. They have confidence that they're at the right spot. And we got some reporting that can show where they were at during the inspection. So we've helped our compliance inspectors. We made it a little more efficient for them. Our auditors have a good feeling that all these inspection points were walked to, and the inspector was in the right location. Let's talk about data management. Post-pandemic, a lot of people didn't go to the office anymore. So when it came to managing files, it's hard to do when you're not at your filing cabinet. So we wanted a way to move these reports out of the filing cabinet and at least onto a web-based platform. So the first thing we did, we started using like Microsoft SharePoint, things like that, which worked really well to go through and say, okay, here's all the inspections you've done. With your inspection, just upload it, save the file to the inspection document, and that worked pretty well. And finally, what we landed on with EH&S tracks is all these data from these inspections, these tablets, is constantly syncing to the cloud and going to a web-based application. EH&S tracks that out. All the data is tracked to whoever's logged in. We wanted the ability for clients that had responsibility for multiple sites to have access to all their sites in one platform. We wanted the ability to manage multiple types of compliance inspections in one platform. So if you're a jack of all trades and you're responsible for SPCC, LDAR, waste, safety, once you get able to get one site and manage all these programs. So you'll see on the right, we have these other programs, and we're going to be releasing home water, waste, and safety this year. LDAR and SPCC are in place, but we wanted one location to manage multiple facilities if you have multiple facilities. And we wanted the ability to manage multiple inspection requirements that all look the same. You know, the waste inspection looks the same as the LDAR inspection. So really you can hand that tablet to anyone. The questions are going to be laid out there for them. And with minimal training, you can have one person perform all your compliance inspections. We really needed to manage corrective actions, because what we found was that the inspections were one part of it, but the corrective actions were another whole nother bear to manage. So when we found deficiencies in the field, the compliance people are also responsible for managing the corrective actions as well. And they may not be they're not the ones in control of that. Typically it's operations and maintenance. So we wanted these photos of the deficiencies and the descriptions of the deficiencies be available to operations and maintenance personnel as well. And we really wanted that to eliminate the email back and forth of what typically happens, where, hey, we found a leak over here, can you guys go fix it? Get an email back. We made an attempt, we couldn't fix it, we've got to order other parts. You don't hear anything for 10 days. You send them another email. Hey, what about that leak? They send you another email back and forth. And that's extremely time consuming. So we wanted to put the corrective action management in the hands of the maintenance and operation people, where they can go in and manage that on that platform, and our compliance staff have access to it. So just to summarize kind of where we ended up with our applications, we wanted to eliminate multiple inspection sheets and inspection preparation. We feel like that saves time and money. We wanted to make sure that our inspection point edits are immediate. So if we're out there with a tablet and we see an inspection point's been removed or modified, we can make that edit. And there's no revising inspection spreadsheet. It's already done. Like I said, we wanted multiple types of inspections from one tablet. We can take our SPCC application, LDAR application, and go back and forth. So if you're out in the field and you happen to walk by an SPCC inspection point while you're doing your LDAR, you just flip over to the other application and work on it. And we definitely wanted to track corrective actions. We wanted the GPS mapping to actually show you how to get to the inspection point. So finding those inspection points, we've now eliminated that institutional knowledge that's required to be able to find all these inspection points. We wanted the inspector to be confident that they were at the right spot, but also we wanted the auditors to be confident that that inspector was walking out to that inspection point. And then we wanted easy access to the data through web recording. We wanted it accessible through our phone, any computer with a web browser, basically anywhere. So we wanted the environmental manager that's responsible for multiple sites to be able to sit back here during a boring presentation like this and check their compliance and make sure things were going well. And then we wanted to provide the ability to audit multiple sites, multiple compliance programs remotely, so that we save some costs with mobilization for third-party audits, things like that. That's it.